Yeah.
If we start. May I ask you to
Just gonna get this unmute
so that we don't get the reverberation?
Mute them.
That's fine. I think that's okay.
Just sort of something. Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? Perhaps just give me a wave if you can hear me without any overtones and able to see.
Okay. This one.
Okay. All right, we're going to start our last CLC for our semester on philosophy of education, and I want to invite you to settle down and take note of what we're going to do this evening as we bring this module to a close on this our fourth CLC tutorial on philosophy of education, and based on unit 4 and 5. So as I welcome you to tonight's tutorial, I just want you to relax and make the best of this time with me and with Peter, who's in the studio as well, as we go through tonight's sum up, recap of what we've been doing and our preparation for the last assignment before us. So good evening to you all and welcome to tonight's tutorial. Just to get us started, perhaps you can just say who you are and where are you, and just introduce yourself as you greet each other as well. I do see that the Bay is with us. Perhaps you can start. Who's out there?
Hello, it's Irma. I'm at the Bay in Somerset West. The picture on the main screen is terrible, so that's why you can't see me, because I can see you much better on the laptop than on the screen. So sorry about that.
No problem at all. Welcome, Emma. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly well, and on the laptop see you perfectly well. It's on the big screen now.
Okay. Are you this evening?
Sorry, what did you say?
Are you by yourself this evening? Is it just you?
Yes, maybe I'm still alone, but Angela did WhatsApp earlier on that she is coming, so I'm waiting for her.
Okay, so welcome to you. Everyone who will join us on and I want to invite you to feel comfortable and participate as best as you can in the various tasks and activities that's going to make up tonight's tutorial. Just to get us started, I have a quote that I would like to share with you as we welcome each other to this final tutorial in philosophy of education. And on your screen, as I bring it up, is a quote from the Psalms. You can read this quietly, and I will talk about it a little later very briefly at the end of our lecture. But I think that speaks a great deal to what we are about in Cornerstone as teachers and in our philosophy of education module. For me, these words from the Psalms mean a great deal as a teacher of many years and now even working with you. I want you to take a few minutes, either by yourself or with a partner, and reflect on these 5 questions that are in front of you. I'm going to give you a few minutes, and don't feel pressured to complete all of them, but as best as you can, write up what you think is philosophy, what is epistemology. Can you think of 10 perspectives that we have talked about during the course of our semester? Can you list at least 5 key people that we have written about, researched, discussed, critiqued over these months? And can you identify at least 5 foundational learning theories, the core of your last assignment? Just take a few minutes now and just reflect on these. Without asking you to rewrite all your assignments, this is a little test on memory. And what I've asked you to do is just ponder over the different aspects of this module that we have been engaged in for the last few months. We're going to look tonight at a recap that these questions will cover. And at the end of the recap, we can get back to these questions as you've been reflecting on it. The last few weeks have been focusing on what is philosophy, what is the study of epistemology, what is epistemology about. We've been looking at key perspectives and different proponents and philosophers over the centuries that have been influential in what happens in today's classrooms and in our profession as teachers. And we've been critiquing different foundational theories in terms of learning and teaching. So as we recap, we look at our first unit that focused on these questions. And we looked at some key perspectives. Perhaps you can just check your responses to those 5 questions. Did you have some of these key words? These were some key perspectives among several others that we focused on this semester. Unit 2 looked at some of the main people involved in learning theories and their foundational concepts. We looked at Dewey and experiential learning. We looked at Rousseau and naturalistic learning. Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy, Gardner's multiple intelligences. We looked at discovery learning with Piaget talking about developmental theory and a whole host more. And in doing so, we looked at how these theories may be applied in today's classrooms. We looked at CAPS in particular, the Curriculum and Assessment Policy, as is the current policy for South African classrooms today, and how these theorists impact what we do on a daily basis. We look to see if their theories can be applied. Is it reflected in the curriculum, and how? We looked at actual classroom interaction and the impact of these theories and their influences on us as teachers on a daily basis. We also looked at what's missing. We looked at what can't be used in terms of policy and practice. We found that the policy might call for a learner-centered approach, but practice often makes it very difficult in terms of systemic demands and requirements. So in critiquing these foundational theories against these philosophers, we looked at how they are applied in today's curriculum in South Africa. Unit 3 focused on philosophical viewpoints of 3 very important theories that impact our curriculum and our practice. We looked at behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Piaget, Vygotsky, Paulo Freire, and working with diversity, differentiation, and the heterogeneous classrooms that we have in today's society. We looked at the vast disparities that exist, and at the moment you are busy consolidating a philosophical viewpoint in terms of what works best and why, and how these philosophies and theories impact on the world of the South African classroom today. In debating these viewpoints, you are critiquing the value of these theories for classroom practice, the complexities they bring up, and the contradictions that often are understated. Constructivism, very much an approach towards meeting diversity and disparities, do not always work as it says it does. But we need to know why and how best we can work around these if a learner-centered approach is what our curriculum is about. In looking at alternative, creative teaching approaches, one cannot but need cognitivism, behaviorism, and constructivism towards a balanced approach to teaching the individual child. So when we look at these questions again, we can trace a path that we have followed since our first unit together in terms of a philosophy of education, in terms of this module. By exploring these various philosophies and theories, we are working towards creating a better classroom and better teachers. So, in answering these questions, I ask you again to take a few minutes and reflect on your personal journey through the assignments that you have undertaken, through your readings, through your reflection as a future teacher or a current teacher in preparing yourself to meet the demands of teaching and learning in our South African context. So in asking yourself, what is philosophy? Who are the people involved? What are the theories you are exploring in depth what it is to be a teacher? So take a few minutes again as we round up this recap in reflecting on these questions. And at this point, I'm going to ask you now just to provide a brief feedback on some of your thoughts on this journey that you have undertaken so far. How has it been for you? Either share it on group chat if you are at home and in other places. And if you are at the tutorial, perhaps use a moment or two now to unmute your computer and just share what your thoughts have been on the journey that you have taken so far. I'm going to ask you, Irma, if you can just unmute your computer and perhaps just share briefly what your thoughts have been so far on this semester and your journey through the assignments that you've been doing and the questions that I have.
For myself, I felt it was quite thought-provoking and also a revision of things I've done a long time ago. And then to see as well what has been happening in the last 10, 15 years in that respect.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that. We didn't get to hear you.
It says
Mute. Yeah, and then just get it.
hello? Can you hear now?
We can hear you better.
Okay. I felt it has been thought-provoking and also nice to see how you similar philosophies that you have used in a completely different setting, how you can use them in education. And also to read about some things that have happened in the last 10 years.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Irma. I'm going to ask you to capture that on group chat so that we don't miss out on what you have said there. We have been able to pick up a few things, and it would be lovely to hear more from you. And I invite those who are not here this evening to do the same. If you could just write up on group chat, that would be great. As we proceed to the next slide, we're going to look at an alternative creative model for teaching where a whole class can be taught as individuals through an approach that was developed some years ago by Dunn and Dunn. One of the objectives of tonight's tutorial is Unit 4 and Unit 5. Unit 5 has focused on summing up what we have done and working towards our last assignment where you are going to be developing your own personal philosophy. Unit 4 focuses on alternative creative ways of teaching. And one of the objectives for Unit 4 is looking at a brain-based approach to teaching. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of one such model, and you are welcome to go and explore this further in terms of teaching through modalities. Many of you have been writing up about kinesthetic and tactual learning, and here I have for you one model that has been developed by Professor Rita and Kenneth Dunn about 40 years ago, where they have developed an instrument where students take an online assessment or pen and paper assessment to determine their individual learning style. And when teachers get to know that, they are then able to tailor-make the curriculum according to the individual learning styles of their students. The Dunn and Dunn model is one such model. There are many others that you will come across if you haven't already, based on psychology, on emotion, the emotional intelligences, or even a cognitive model. Myers and Briggs are a very popular model that has been used with kinesthetic, tactual, visual, and auditory learning. The Dunn and Dunn model takes this a bit further, and though it's based on a psychobiological approach, they incorporate emotion and sociological preferences as well. It's quite a radical approach, but very doable. And one of the best things about it is that teachers become aware of their students far more than before when they know how their students work well and learn best. It is a study model, and it's for adults and learners equally. And it's something that you can explore through the Learning Styles Network, or just by exploring the Done and Done Learning Styles approach to teaching. It's a fascinating approach, and it is still under much research. What has been found is that after using the approach, teachers found their learners extremely enthusiastic, motivated, wanting to come to school. As yet, studies throughout the world has not fully proven whether results improve, but certainly learning improves. So if you're looking to seeing if assessments are impacted on, perhaps there's room here for more research, but certainly a model worth investigating in terms of alternative creativity and individual pedagogy. So, tonight is also about developing your own philosophy of teaching. And what does that mean? Your last assignment is going to bring together everything that we have explored so far. It's going to look into what is philosophy, who were the people involved, what are the theories, and underpinned by that, you're going to develop your own philosophy for teaching. I'm not going to display the exact question. You may, you're welcome to look at the resources menu on Funda for the wording of your assessment, but it is a compulsory assessment worth 25%, and it calls you to write up 2 to 3 pages, about 600 words, on developing your own philosophy. And in getting you to think through this in terms of how you're going to go about it, one of the things before the activity that I want to mention is that the whole concept, or the key to this topic, is that it is developing. It is not something that you can say you have and always will have and will never change your philosophy of teaching. Because contexts change, times change, curriculums change, children change. And with change, one is always building upon and developing one's own philosophy of teaching. If you don't already have one, you're going to need to draw your mind to the various things that influence a development of a philosophy of teaching. If you look at some of these bullets, and they're not an exhaustive list, you will find some of the things that teachers are impacted on daily in terms of their philosophy of teaching. If you look at the following influential factors, you would find that all of these things are found in our classrooms today, in part of the curriculum, part of education, part of the system, and so forth. What I want you to do now is reflect on them, look at these, and I want you to select those bullets, those aspects, or those factors that you think are for you a priority. Where do you place your priority in terms of being a teacher? Where do you place your influential factors that would develop a philosophy of teaching for you? In front of you are quite a few thought-provoking aspects. Would it be on content? Would you want your students to master content as a priority? Is teaching about engaging students to be good citizens? Is it about self-fulfillment and individual fulfillment? Is teaching about critical thinking, problem solving? Would you place a priority as a teacher on discovery learning and knowledge generation? What about teamwork? Is that an essential for you? In developing your philosophy of teaching, would you say self-directed learning, experiential learning is uttermost or a priority for you? What about the environment? Does that play a huge role in your teaching? Do you want to develop students who are social and politically engaged? And what about spiritual awareness? If you have to prioritize these, which ones for you would be upmost? Take a few minutes now and reflect on this, and you're welcome to number them, if not all, some of them that you believe strongly influence you as a teacher. So, in reflecting on these various influential factors, I would like you to engage in each of them deeply, insightfully, and critically as you develop your own philosophy of teaching. In doing so, ask yourself why you feel that these are important for you as a teacher. Ask yourself, if content is important and the mastery thereof, where will it be most appropriate? Do all classrooms need to be content focused? If so, yes, and why? And if you think that every classroom in the South African context should be environmentally aware or spiritually aware, ask yourself why. Why is that a priority for you in developing your own philosophy of teaching? And another activity. Tonight is very much a reflective process in assisting you to develop your own teaching philosophy, not just for the assignment, but for your future as a teacher as well. I'd like you to spend a few minutes. If you have somebody to speak to, you're welcome to discuss this, or on your own. How would you complete the following? The purpose of education is to students learn best. When teaching, what are your goals? The most effective methods of teaching are. Take a few minutes here also and complete this either by thinking through it or writing a few key words as you spend a minute or two on these questions. I'm going to ask you just to give a brief feedback on what we have just talked about in terms of looking at developing a personal philosophy for teaching. Looking at the list of influential factors and these questions, are there any questions that you would like to raise at this point? Does it help to focus on them? Is it going to be useful for you? Just some quick feedback. I think there's just Irma at the bay. Irma, would you like to just... Irma, are you able to hear me? Okay. All right, you're welcome to use group chat. Yes? Okay. I'm going to ask you, Irma, just to give me your brief comment. And if there are others, it would be nice to hear them too. I think we're going to move on. You're welcome to add your thoughts on group chat if you wish to. When we move along, I just want to bring it all together in a brief conclusion. Our discussion forum at the beginning of the semester looked at what is philosophy, and you're all engaged in discussing key elements of your thoughts around that. Our first assignment looked at the main proponents in foundational theory. Your results have been given to you. The second assignment has just come in, and we're looking at debating the value, complexities, and contradictions in practice of behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. This last assignment, which is due in a couple of days or so, is based on all you have learned and the beliefs that underpin them, and you're asked to develop your own personal teaching philosophy. And at this point, I just want to say, it is going to be fine if you share that you aren't experienced and fully knowledgeable about what goes on in schools if you're not a teacher already, and that a philosophy is always built on and constructed from the various contexts that you find yourself in. It is work in progress. So with the requirements for the current assignment, you're welcome to share what you think of at this point in time. So you can base your assignment and your thoughts on what we have learned and what you find that you believe deeply in at this point in time, and based within your context that you find yourself in. And then to conclude, it's interesting that I have been asked, do I believe that these various models are well-founded and based in the Bible? And it's interesting to say that for me, this psalm is what I underpin my philosophy, my personal philosophy as a teacher and one who is involved with curriculum and with students. I find that my awareness that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and He knows us, and He knows that, is what underpins my philosophy in terms of being a teacher. The done and done model speaks to teaching the individual in one response, in one best way. And one cannot just base one's philosophy on one model. As a teacher, and over time, you gather knowledge and you create a philosophy based on a number of things. And you approach your teaching in terms of the context that you find yourself in. But what keeps the constant? What never changes? And for me, these words capture the constant, that we are made fearfully and wonderfully by a God who cares and who loves us even before we were formed. So for me, that is, yes, a beautiful psalm that underpins my philosophy. I want to thank you for your presence and for your participation over the last 4 CLCs that we've been together in, and for this semester as we bring it to a close in the next few weeks. The semester will be coming to an end, your assignments will be in, and I want to thank you for your participation, your interaction, your engagement, for some vigorously, for others still on a journey, and yet others finding themselves within the ambits of philosophy of education, all of it contributing towards being the best teachers that we can be in terms of making a difference to those who are fearfully and wonderfully made. So thank you for this evening, and I wish you every success in the remaining assignments that you have. Do your best because you can. God bless you, and I wish you well. Good evening.